Good morning, it's Jim Kennard, and I'm going to be talking to you about improving your yields by pollinating some of your own plants. Now, many plants you cannot do much because the flower is too small, and some plants it is a perfect flower, which means it has both the male and female parts in the same plant. I'll show you tomato plants in a few moments. Other plants have large flowers, and you are able to act as the pollinator to improve your yields if the pollinators are not doing their jobs. I'll show you one right now. Here we have a zucchini plant, and of course it is somewhat similar to the last one we looked at, but a little bit different. Let's look at the male and female flowers. Right here we have male flowers. Notice that they are not open, they are not fresh. The only time that it's going to be available and ready to pollinate is when that flower is open and fresh. To illustrate our point here, I'm going to take that off and act as if, but it probably will not accomplish the pollination. There's the stamen of the male flower, and there is our female flower with the pistil. Notice the complexity of that pistil. I will then touch the stamen to the pistil, and if this were receptive and active, that would pollinate it, and that would accomplish the fertilization of that female flower. By the way, look again at the female flower and notice that you can see a little fruit behind the blossom. Now, because this is not fresh, it probably will not accomplish the pollination. I'm hoping that yesterday one or two of these males were in fact receptive and that pollination got accomplished. Here we have tomatoes. And this flower is actually a perfect flower, meaning that it has both the male and the female parts in the same blossom. What you have to do in order to get that pollinated is simply create a little movement. Once those are open and available, once those are open and receptive, any movement will transfer the pollen from the stamen to the pistil in that tiny flower. Now, the professionals who hybridize, they actually go in and do pollination in that flower. They will either take off the male part of the one they don't want and then introduce the male that they do want. So hybridization in tomatoes is a big deal and a lot of work. For us, all we do is let the wind or the natural movement pollinate it for us. If you're growing your tomatoes in the greenhouse, you may have to come along and just move the plant occasionally. I'll talk about one more plant that we might be able to help in the pollination process, and that's corn. Now, corn, as you undoubtedly know, has the pollen in the tassels. The pollen falls from the tassels and falls onto the leaves. Notice the pollen that you see there. Now, as we go further down, we will see that at the center, right at the stalk, you'll have the ear of the corn, and that will have silk showing. To begin with, that silk will be just a white color, clear, and hopefully some of this pollen will fall onto the silk. You can actually help pollinate by taking that and shaking it onto the silk. Now, normally it's going to be done by itself. One of the things that you need to be careful of is to plant your corn close enough together so that this happens efficiently and effectively. How do we do that? We plant our corn 8 inches apart in 2 rows. Basically, you're planting in blocks so that they are up and down close together. There's enough of it that they all get pollinated. The last plant we'll look at is cucumbers. Now these, we don't normally do the pollination by ourselves. There are a couple of reasons for that. The flowers are small, very small actually, but that means also that they are easy for the pollinators to get to and to take care of that job themselves. And I'll give you an example. Here we have a male flower, and as you zoom into that, you see how tiny the pistil is in there. I'm going to take it off. We know this is a male flower because the stem is bare behind it. It does not have a fruit. Remember that the male flower has a stamen, and that stamen is tiny. We have to strip the leaves or the petals away totally to try and expose the stamen. Then we will take that to the female flower. Notice the fruit behind the female flowers there. We're also going to have to pull the petal away from the female stamen and then touch the stamen, pull the petals away from the female pistil, and then we will touch the male stamen to the female pistil and hopefully get that pollinated. Not as easy, not as sure of getting that job done. And so for several reasons, because we have lots of cucumbers, the flowers are small, the organs are small, and it's easier for the pollinators to do it, we rarely will try and pollinate the cucumbers.